Hello, and welcome to Playmakers Alley. What I'm looking to do with this channel is essentially help people to learn, grow, and understand American football. I'm looking to take people my goal is to take people that may or may not know a lot about the sport, can be complete novices around the sport, and get to the point where mentally you are good enough that you could represent a national program. Now, in order to teach you and explain to you some of the concepts which I'm going to explain across the videos, I'm going to use the British American football scene as the vehicle. Partly because that's one of my passions. It's what I'm in. It's what I'm involved in. And not to get too much into me, that can come at another date. But in terms of from the coaching scene, the playing scene, being a fan scene, it's what I'm involved in, and I'm a big believer in the scene. Even though it doesn't get as much credit, it doesn't get that much credit generally, whether rightly or wrongly. And what I'm gonna look to do is that it doesn't matter whether you're a coach, you're a player, you're a fan. You can go from knowing absolutely nothing, and as we go through the videos and the concepts, you'll grow to have a very adept understanding, a holistic understanding that you can apply to when you're watching a game and truly know what you're talking about and understand what you're talking about. My goal is essentially, particularly with the American football and the British scene here, is essentially to uproot people's thinking, like completely just uproot it and change it. Because really, I feel like people are a bit stuck in their ways as to how they see the game, and it's not necessarily progressing it onwards. And I'm hoping that by explaining some of the concepts I do in later videos, that it will give people a different perspective to look at it, and they can take it on board and take it for the value, both its merits and demerits, depending on whatever they see in it. Now, when I say I'm looking to uproot, which is quite forceful imagery, I really do mean it. Really do mean it. When I say uproot, when I refer to the U, I'm looking to give people an understanding of the sport and how the sport works. In terms of the P, help people have a set of principles that they can use as a framework to understand the game and use that framework regardless of what scheme they're in. So they don't just become pure scheme people. Or if you're a coach, that you don't just have a scheme and you know how to run the scheme, but you don't necessarily know why the scheme works or why it doesn't work. It's just something that's been successful and your players have managed to make it run. So understanding some principles that you can use as a framework so that you can, regardless of whether you play for one scheme or you play for another program, you go into another program, is flexible enough that you can use that to compare what you're running against those principles, or just they'll use those principles to understand a new set of scheme. The R, rules, what rules you need to know, what rules you don't need to know. As I said, with all these things, it'll be from a player, coach, fan perspective. Initially, it will most likely be focusing around players, but I would look to touch on all of them. O will be organic. And when I say organic, this seems a bit abstract, but with organic, I'm really referring to it's important that regardless as a player or as a coach, when you are implementing something, whether that be a scheme or you're playing within a scheme, organic is that under scrutiny, you're able to comfortably answer questions around what your role is or why you are having your players implement these things. It simply isn't good enough to just be like, oh yeah, just beat them, or this is how it's done. I've taken this scheme from here and it runs. Yes, those are all very valid, but the issue with that is that you're not then teaching people how to be better, or you as a player, you're not really getting better. You just know, oh, this is how I run it, but I don't know why I'm doing these things. So it's important that we understand how to be organic with our thinking. So regardless of whether it's right or wrong, there's a logic to it. And then we can then make changes and know what the changes we're making. The second O, so sorry, we've gone from organic to the second O being obligations. Now, in terms of obligations, when I refer to obligations, is that what you as a player, I'm going to focus on player at the moment, but what you as a player have to do in order to be good at this game, even possibly great at this game. And personally, I'm a big believer that like you do some basic things, you will automatically be better than 70% of people that play the sport here in Britain. That's my own personal belief, whether rightly or wrongly. And the fact of the matter is that a large swathe of people just don't even do that bare minimum. So we'll get into that in future videos, but some of the obligations as to what is expected from you as a player, coach, fan. And then finally, the trade-offs. Because like with most things in this world, nothing's perfect. Like, when you implement something, you need to understand at a basic level the strengths and weaknesses, what it's good against, what it's bad against, and what it is that you're looking to take away. Like, generally, you can put people in a good position for most things, but not for everything. And accepting and understanding that is fine. Part of making the choices and understanding the game is understanding that you are making trade-offs. You are making trade-offs. The only time you probably aren't making trade-offs is if you can run whatever you want. And generally, that'll be because there's such a swathe in talent that it's inconsequential what your scheme was. So that's what I mean when I talk about uprooting what people see and what people understand within the sport and giving you a different lens to look at the sport. So ultimately, as we move forward with the future videos on Playmakers Alley, we're going to look for players, coaches, fans, take you from being complete and pure novice to having an understanding that would easily put you in a place that you are good mentally to be in a national program or in the national program. Maybe not physically, and there are a bunch of other things that get into it when you make the national program, but mentally you'll be there. And hopefully give you a different perspective to look at the sport and have a better understanding and move forward. So watch this space. Thank you for your time, and I'll catch you later.